This is the Less Insurance Dependence podcast show with my good friend Gary Takas and myself, Narain Arul Raja.
We appreciate your listenership, your time, and most of all, we appreciate your intention to reduce insurance dependence in your practice. Our goal is to provide information that will help you successfully reduce insurance dependence and convert your practice into a thriving and profitable dental practice that provides you with personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Less Insurance Dependence podcast, your trusted source for insights, strategies, and expert advice to elevate your dental practice and career. I'm Michael Walker, your co-host, and I'm thrilled to bring you another value-packed episode with an industry expert. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Kari Carter-Cherelus, who brings invaluable insights on achieving work-life balance as a dental professional while building a practice that thrives beyond insurance dependence. On this podcast, our goal is to equip dental professionals with the tools and knowledge to take control of their practices and careers. Whether it's enhancing patient communication, optimizing a fee-for-service model, or creating a better work-life balance, we're here to help you navigate the journey beyond insurance dependence. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to share an exciting opportunity brought to you by Equa Marketing, the sponsor of this podcast. Equa Marketing is offering a free marketing strategy session, which is valued at $900. When you book this meeting, Equa will provide expert recommendations to, first of all, attract high-quality new patients to your practice, rank number one on Google within your local community, and consistently increase the number of new patient calls month after month. This is an incredible opportunity for your practice's growth, so don't miss out. You can go ahead and book your free meeting today at your convenience. You'll be able to visit lessinsurancedependence.com /marketing-strategy-meeting to get started. You'll also find that link on the page where you found this podcast. So on to today's episode. I'm excited to welcome Kari Carter-Cherelus, a respected leader in the dental industry, an author, speaker, and advocate for improving work-life balance among dental professionals. With years of experience as a registered dental hygienist and industry consultant, Kari understands the unique challenges dental professionals face, from long hours, high patient loads, to the pressures of running a successful practice. Her expertise in preventing burnout, fostering a positive workplace culture, and prioritizing well-being makes her an essential voice in the conversation around sustainable, fulfilling careers in dentistry. Kari believes that reducing insurance dependence can be a key factor in reclaiming control over your schedule, stress levels, and overall job satisfaction. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the whole idea of balancing life and dentistry, and avoiding burnout while reducing insurance dependence. Kari's going to walk us through some of the biggest stressors dental professionals face and how to manage them effectively, how reducing insurance reliance can improve work-life balance and reduce stress, practical strategies to prevent burnout and create a more sustainable, fulfilling career in dentistry, and finally, how practice owners can build a work culture that prioritizes both patient care and team well-being. Kari, it is great to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with your journey. What inspired you to focus on advocating for work-life balance in dentistry as a very specific thing and very important thing, of course?
Basically because I recognized that throughout my career, I didn't always have that. I ended up a number of years burnt out. I didn't even know what burnt out really meant, but someone told me, sounds like you're burnt out. And after research, that's what it was. So at some point, I wrote a book a couple years ago about burnout, the ultimate guide for dental hygienist burnout. And I really saw that it wasn't just me who was experiencing this dissatisfaction with their career or feeling off balance. It's something that a number of professionals experience, especially in the healthcare industry. So whether you're a dentist, a hygienist, office manager, dental assistant, we all can be prone to feeling off balance. The dentistry is a stressful field. and it does require a lot of time and details and attention. And so sometimes things are definitely thrown off, and we don't really focus so much on other parts of our life that we need to attend to.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that, Carrie. I think, this whole idea of being out of balance, you think of the idea, that ball you stand on, the rubber ball, and you try and balance on it, right? That's not my favorite friend in the gym. But I mean, I think sometimes when we look at, like we're trying to balance something that we've often, because we haven't really looked at it, looked behind the scenes, really looked at what's impacting it, that we haven't got a chance. Balance is not going to happen. Like, I don't, if I have a 20-pound weight in my right hand and I try and get on that balance ball, it's going to be a problem. And I love the way you put that. So when we talk about work-life balance as being a big challenge in dentistry, what are the main stressors that dental professionals face, and how do they impact overall well-being?
Well, I feel that despite what your role is in the dental office, we all have different stressors. So if you're the practice owner, you're going to be stressed on making sure that you're going to be able to cover the expenses, the overhead, keep everything going, keep everyone paid. And now one of the big stressors is that people want raises. Everything's expensive. People feel they're working even harder, and they feel that they deserve a raise, and many rightly so. However, added stress for dental office owners is insurance, because unfortunately insurance hasn't really caught up with inflation over decades, and many people only have like $1,000 insurance benefit, which covers really nothing, or even the different procedures that are done, like a prophylaxis, is very, they don't get a lot for all that a hygienist does in that period of time. And so as a hygienist, our stress is that at times we're being told to do more and more with less and less time. So, things are the standard of care. We have to do different assessments. There's new technology that can be helpful for patients and for helping the office be productive or get production, such as scanners and things. But if you don't have enough time or support, it can be very stressful and frustrating. And, if you don't feel that you're getting paid as much as other hygienists in your area are getting paid, that can also lead to resentment when you're being told to do, it feels like sometimes everyone else's job, like you're getting more and more. And the assistant as well. I started off in dentistry as a dental assistant. They do everything as well. So everyone can kind of feel like they're not being taken care, they're not being appreciated. So that's a big stressor as well, when people feel that they're with everyone the most during the week than their own family, and no one's appreciating what they're doing. And then, sometimes we have these office meetings, which can be very helpful, but at the same time, there's a lot of passive aggressiveness. Sometimes we don't say Kari isn't helping with the sterilization or whatever, but we have all these ways we go about it instead of just trying to help one another and support one another. So it's a long list of things that can stress out offices, but there is usually a common thread. So usually it's lack of communication, lack of appreciation, lack of resources, be that money coming in from the insurances, or be that knowing how to get the patients to do procedures that they need to do, because we're all patients somewhere, and we all may have some type of insurance. And so when it comes to us, we want to, maximize our insurance, or we're asking, does my insurance cover that? If we have to have a medical procedure done as well. So we have to understand the patient as well. They have finances. We all have finances.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Carrie. Gallup just came out recently with a new survey on the level of disengagement of people in the workplace. And the number one driver of it was lack of respect, was a desire for respect. And number two is wages, which is interesting, because we think it's wages, but you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it certainly is part of that, and there's challenges around that in a lot of different arenas that we could talk about. But essentially, what you talked about, this idea that respect comes from communication, of people being valued, used to be the one. The last time I saw that survey, I think it was valued and heard they talked about, which is the number one reason people leave organizations. But I think it's suddenly become more personal, with respect. That just feels. So what I'm hearing you say is that, it's about being intentional with communication, and I like to say, being intentional with celebrating the wins, communicating in a way that really helps people feel that they're not a cog in the wheel, but a part of the relationship of the organization. Does that make sense to you?
No, that makes total sense. That's basically how I feel. Most jobs I have left have been due to lack of appreciation. From when I was in high school, like I talked to my husband about one job I had working retail when I was in high school at a store, and I had a huge headache, and it was during the week. No one was in the mall, and I was supposed to be folding clothes. And I like, you're supposed to stand the whole time you're there. You're supposed to stand. And I sat down in one of the chairs and was folding the clothes. And my manager was like, you need to stand. I'm like, I have a really bad headache. No one's in here. Just let me sit for a little bit till it goes away. She said no. That was the very day I went and looked for a job and found an office job where I had better pay. I could sit, I'm not saying I have to sit, but I could sit. And I was excited that I had a furniture office job, and I learned how to do clerical skills there. And I was in high school. And so every job I've left, be it dental, whatever, usually has been due to a lack of appreciation because I'm a very hard worker. I go above and beyond. But once I feel that I'm not being appreciated, or I'm not being respected, or I'm being demeaned, or microaggressions, that's when I tend to leave. And that's when a lot of people leave. And that's kind of contribute, honestly, to the dental shortage that everyone's talking about. When we have that lack of respect and communication and celebrating the wins, it's pretty easy for managers to come and say, oh, you messed up this today, or, you didn't do this and everything. But what about all the things I've done? What about all the production, or the patient relationships, or the patients who followed me from somewhere else, or whatever? So it's very important to really, on a daily basis, talk about the win, show appreciation. It's not always like buying something, that's great, or bonuses, love that. But at the same time, it's just daily saying thank you, or Mrs. Jones really loved the care you gave her, or thanks for catching that, I missed it.
Yeah, that's exactly. I love the way you put that. I think, celebrating the wins for me, it's the culture in particular. I do work in the medical side a lot with these podcasts and webinars, from veterinarians to plastic surgeons to dentists and the common thread is that there's a tendency, because of the culture, to focus the wins on what you do and how you do it, the transactional side of the business, and we kind of ignore the relational side about who we are and why we matter, which is exactly what you're saying. And just being intentional with that, hey, Kari, I just noticed today, you just took that extra minute with that mom who just had that little boy struggling, saying hi to that little boy, and calmed right down. That was so cool. I mean, there's no real KPI attached to that. But it's huge. It's because now you've just created a customer who not only has a higher level of trust you, is going to probably come back for more services and tell their friends. So
And that's something you can do not just in the office, it's a daily thing. When I go pick up my son from preschool, the kids want to talk to me. Sometimes the things they say is really funny, or like, kindergarten cop stuff. Like, I can't believe you told me that. But just being open to talking to people on a daily basis, being kind, is important because everyone needs that. And if you practice that on a daily basis everywhere, you're gonna incorporate that culture into the office, no matter who you are. And that's what people need. So just talking to people, as a lot of times doctors talk about losing out on production in the office, and if you don't have enough time to talk to people, then you can't really tell them about their health, or buy what, have their hygienist generally tell them how this procedure is going to help them, or show them why, because everything's rushed. And we know that when we go somewhere and we feel rushed, we don't feel like someone took enough time with us, we're not gonna really want to spend our money there, because you didn't even listen. It took me months to get this appointment, and you have me on a time clock. I saw you look at your watch, you're in and out.
Yeah, that's there's a saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's really, there's a balance in that. It's part of the whole, everything we're talking about. But let's talk a little bit about the fact, many dentists feel trapped by the demands of insurance-based practice models. How does reducing insurance dependence contribute to a better work-life balance?
Well, if you're stuck in the parameters of you can do all this work on a patient and only get this much reimbursement, it's going to be very stressful, knowing that you have to pay for everything else. Or, that's one reason sometimes that's used as an excuse why they shorten times, or why they have double columns or triple columns, or, it does affect patient care when you're skimming, basically. So something's gonna fall through the cracks. So what can be helpful is actually making sure that you give more options, no different protocols. So as a hygienist, sometimes offices are pro females, so they only do 30-minute whatever prophylaxis cleanings, that's not really enough time to find the disease, to do what you're supposed to do, the proper assessments, to check for airway, to do perio assessments, to do oral cancer screenings, to see what the patient is a candidate for, because they may need perio treatment, they may need be a case for Invisalign, and you could talk to them about being able to benefit from varnishes and things. So in my practice as a hygienist, when I've been the most productive of being able to help my practice is when I've had enough time to do all these different things. And then basically that appointment ends up being someone paying for it, either the insurance or the patient, someone seeing the value and different procedures are being done. But unfortunately, sometimes offices choose to be on every insurance plan, and then they're kind of shackled in a way from being able to offer the best treatment because they're afraid that if that patient is told they need more treatment, they're going to just leave. So it's almost that a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush mentality. They are rather the hygienists do that prophy when the patient actually needs a lot more perio done. But they're afraid if you tell them, then the patient will leave. And I've been in that situation where I want to tell the patient what needs to be done, but the doctor's like, just do a prophy. And then I'm writing in my notes as per dentist, and I'm doing it not because I want to, but because I need a job too. And everything until I find a better job. I'm with you until I find a better job and I can do the right thing sometimes. So a lot of people are stuck. And so I just encourage the dentist and the hygienist to be on this same playing field where we can talk and have discussions and talk about co-diagnosis, because in my experience, when there's more co-diagnosis going on in the dental office, then it doesn't even matter the insurance so much, because we find a way for the patient maybe to get finance, or the patient understands that yes, they would love to have the prophylaxis, but they're not a candidate and that's not going to benefit their health. And so they will do this other treatment. So insurance is a big factor and why there's a lot of stress in the industry right now. But if we can kind of take that away, some offices can't just go no insurance. And, patients may have different insurance plans because we are all patients. We all have, we're not all rich where we can just go to fee for service and everything. It can be helpful, but also really showing what needs to be done. Sometimes the patient will do it. I'll use myself as an example. Every time I go get my eyes checked once a year, they have the machine that was just like extra $20 or $40 copay to take the picture and everything. I'm a patient. I'm a grumble inside every time. I got to pay this money, but I know it's the best option other than getting my eyes dilated. So I do it because I know it's the best thing. So it's the same thing. If you give the patients the option and you genuinely care about them, usually they will do it, or they find a way to do it at some point.
Yeah, great. I can totally identify that with the glasses too, with the eye exam, and even the dentist for myself too. Like, I don't have a plan, so I have to pay, so it's, I like I want to, what are my options? And that's what I ask. And I find, I have, I had a couple of dentists before I have the one now, and they seemed resistant to want to do that, to give me options. And so that, for me, that's just, oh, that's problematic. So I found someone that did, and now they give me options, and we don't make it a financial process. Here's the options. This is what it'll do for you, and this is kind of what it'll cost. But you said something really interesting, I think. We think about this idea of co-diagnosis. I love that. But I also think, what's interesting is when we're talking about respecting the patients and celebrating the wins, we're thinking, we look at that, and how do we do that? There's also, if there's co-diagnosis, there's also co-wins. So do we take time to talk with each other? Like, I know they're different roles and all that, but to talk about what was the win with that patient? I mean, without disrupting the entire day and taking 2 hours for lunch, the idea of just having a little, but the key to being able to have quick snapshot wins in real-time conversation is to already know what you've defined as a win. And so if the win is that the patient said, hey, that was the best thing I had ever, or I can't wait to tell my friends, or whatever, those kind. But I think I love that idea. So more co-diagnosis and being more intentional co-wins. How do we win? Because the reality is we can't change don't have the power to change the billing capacity. So what can we change? Well, it's our relationship with the process.
Being on the same page as an office. So
yeah.
most people who work in an office, they want their office to be successful. They want it to win. So if you have a team approach, what are our different goals? What do we want for office? If it's all about money, people resent that, especially hygienists, because we feel like we mainly came into the field to help people. If you make it about helping people, then people are gonna like that, and the money always comes anyways. The more you're helping people, the more the money comes. If you're saying, hey, Miss Jones finally got that Invisalign treatment, she's happy that she's starting the treatment. She's gonna have less airway problems. She's getting her teeth straightened afterwards. She's gonna get whitening done and everything. So it's about, she finally did it. We did the scanner, it took some time. The assistant helped me scan. We got the patient to do it. She's happy. She's getting financing. Everything's working out. So talking about those things as a group or a team meeting or a quick thing is important, instead of, always talking about the losses or how that patient just left. It's, if you go on Facebook, and I have a Facebook group of like 10,000 people. If it's something negative, so many views, so many views. Everyone's looking at it's like news. But if it's something positive, not as many views, not as many likes. But what causes a lot of engagement, and you see that in some Facebook groups, is when there's negativity. So if you have more positivity in the office, that's what's going to spread. The last office I worked at full time, one of the front admin teams would say, what do they say at Chick-fil-A? My pleasure. And I used to laugh inside, like, that's so funny, my pleasure and everything. But that's actually how we're supposed to do it. People like that thank you. I'm trying to help you, my pleasure. And so it just turns things around. So negativity isn't good. It brings everyone down in the office, starts gossip, people want to leave. But if you turn things around and it's positive, and hey, that the kid finally sat and got those ceilings done, or was excited, or one case that I remember is I had this teenager. He would not brush his teeth. Would not brush his teeth. He brushed it like 3 times a week. His father would come in. Yeah, he brushes 3 times a week. And I would talk to him. I gave him different ways. Hey, is anyone, I played with him. Hey, you gonna get any kisses from anyone for doing that or whatever, or morning breath, or I don't want anyone to make fun of you in school. And then he came back one day. He's like, I've been brushing my teeth every day now. And that was a win. I talk about him. That was a good win, that he finally made that connection, that he was going to do that. And he wanted to tell me that he finally was doing something that you think we know we should do, just at least once a day. So that's a good win. And, that we talked about in an office, and he was smiling. So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that whole idea. We have a theory. My background is in the hospitality industry. I went to school for that. And it's called the 3 and 13 theory, that when you find a favorite restaurant, like a new restaurant, you'll only tell 3 people, because no one wants to let the secret out. I don't want to lose my table. It doesn't quite apply. That was before that theory probably needs to be updated with the internet. But what the theory is that the 13 people, a bad experience, they'll tell 13 people. And that's now that gets magnified big time on social media. So, I mean, it's just, you have to be intentional with going after the wins, going after the conversations, and why did you value this? And I love that story. That's exactly that. You really unexpectedly delighted that young man, because you just gave him a context he hadn't thought yet. So he didn't know he needed that. He really didn't think he needed or wanted to brush his teeth. But once he had a purpose and a vision for it, now the game's changed. That's a great one. I might be using that one. Thank you very much, Kari. I'll give you credit the first time. So let's jump to another question. Just talk about, with dental professionals, what are some practical strategies that dental professionals, I know we have them listening here today, what they can implement to manage stress, to prevent burnout, and create a more sustainable career. I think that's, there's a lot of folks probably listening. They're saying, like, maybe I'm at wit's end or getting close to it, or I'm just, I'm trying to find something that I can go home at night and feel good about how I handle myself and others. What are your thoughts on that? What are some strategies that they can manage stress, prevent burnout, and have a more sustainable career?
Well, I think the first thing is that they're at wit's end, they should really get help by talking to someone. So be it a therapist, be it a coach, there's the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches. I'm a part of that. But there's several dental coaches in there that they can talk with who have been in the same situation, so that they can really help them think about some behavior modifications, or give them basically a lifeline, or some, strategies to help them with what's going on in their office or going on with them inside. So that would be number one, is actually reaching out and getting help from a professional, be it a therapist or a coach, someone who's gonna assist you so you don't feel like you're alone. And then number two is just taking a step back. I know that even though I talk about burnout, I'm prone to burnout because I'm prone to always doing a lot. I have a million jobs, honestly. So making sure that you have people who support you, that you have a team. When it was just me doing my jobs, it was more difficult because everything's on me. But when I can delegate different things to different people on my team, it makes it a lot easier and less mistakes happen. So, but you're not micromanaging. You are making sure that you have a team that's going to support you. So that would mean that if you're a dental owner, that you are hiring people that align with your basically belief system. They're going to support you. You're not just trying to find a warm body, which I know is difficult right now with a dental shortage. Sometimes people will just pick up anyone, but you don't
Mm.
want that. And then also one big thing is taking that time for yourself. That's what I've been doing lately is just starting exercising again, trying to make sure I'm eating healthy because if you're filling up yourself with negativity, there's a lot of negativity out there right now, the news, you can have some negative upset patients, especially if their insurance benefits aren't kicking in and paying for things and they're irate. There's a lot of negative things around. So you have to really feed your body and your mind with positivity and be around positive people. Those are the main three things that I think is helpful. Get someone to help you. Make sure you have the support everywhere in your life. And then also do what you need to do. It's not selfish to take care of yourself first. It's a cliche, but I always say put your oxygen mask on first. I'm a
Mhm.
mom, so sometimes that's difficult, because I'm going to make sure my child is taken care of first. I take care of him first with everything. And then I have to make sure that I'm not constantly putting myself in the back seat where I'm starting to have mental fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. You're I just did a webinar earlier this week with a panel of veterinarians, and we were talking about mental health. And the big takeaway that we saw is that was the ability for professionals to be able to say it's okay not to be okay.
Mhm.
It's actually, as you said, reaching out for help. I mean, you can't but there's this stigma. I can't. Oh no, I'll just fight through. I mean, as a man, we'll just grab the duct tape and reattach the arm. It'll be fine. It'll grow back on. We don't. We have a very interesting theory on that. But I think that's the reality is that it's okay to be not okay. I know it's an old saying, but and ask for help. Reach out. It's I have two questions I usually attach to that. Like, what's at risk to do that? Well, I mean, you might think it's your pride or that I'm not as good as I thought I was or what that might look like. But what's at risk not to? That's the significance. There's people that depend on you. There's family. There's yourself. And so, yeah, just thank you for that. That just is so important to just reach out and ask for help. So if you're listening to this and you're in that place where you're saying, hey, I'm identifying with what Kari's talking about here and I'm feeling a little of that. Um, Look yourself in the mirror and just say, "Hey, I'm okay. It's okay. I'm not okay, but I'm okay. I'm perfectly imperfect right now, but I need help. So who am I going to reach out to?" And make
Yeah.
that call. Don't put it off till tomorrow because tomorrow something else will come up and then suddenly it'll be back of mind and then out of mind. So, um,
And I think also checking on one another. So check on your strong friends.
yeah,
I'm the oldest of four children. I always been trying to be the strongest all the time, but sometimes, you know, it's so nice when people check up on me and make sure I'm okay because I'm the one always trying to make sure everyone else is okay. But when someone checks up on me and I'm not okay, then I actually can be like, yeah, thank you so much because this life has been lifing, you know?
yeah, that's a
Like
good one. Yeah. Well, I'm a professional. I'm a leadership coach, and I have most of my clients. I have met some medical professionals. I have a lot of some athletes and entertainers, and really interesting mix. But the common denominator, what people talk about, that we might be working through some stuff, but ultimately the years go on and time goes on, and the greatest value of somebody separate and independent is that a, a well established it establishes an agenda-free space
Mhm.
where you can just have a conversation that nobody has no one's expecting anything back from you. There's no returns. You could just share what you need to share and process, and that it's interesting. Where do you have that? And when you're in a business with all these pressure points, taking it home doesn't usually work out so good. And with your peers, that can work if you've created a safe space to do that. But having this somebody in your corner that just, as I like to say, I'll never be disappointed in you. I'll never change how I value you, and I'll always be your best champion. It's just kind of, and having that person, if that makes sense, Kari?
It makes sense. I think sometimes that's almost why it's good to have a therapist, because you don't have to worry about them telling everyone your inner thoughts and your business. They're not supposed to. But the good thing is I'm laughing because I'm thinking about my mother-in-law who, when she was taking the bus a lot to get to where she needed to go, sometimes she would just unload on a stranger. Like they were her therapist. Like if you've ever done that, or you made a connection with someone and you just started talking about all your issues, you just start talking about your issues. And it's like freeing because you never see that person again. They're telling you about their stuff, you're telling them, and then you don't even exchange numbers, and that was like your therapy for the day. So just sometimes going places and having these discussions, at times when we isolate ourselves, that's what can really lead to our demise. And the thing is when you're depressed, you do tend to isolate yourself more and more. But the more you can actually get out there and be around colleagues and talk to people, the more you can feel like you're not alone. Like I said initially, I thought burnout was just me, but then I realized it's a thing that affects the whole world, the whole industry.
Yep. And it's not going to go away. It's always been there. Just like change and conflict, they're not things that might happen. They are normal. They're healthy when they're healthy. When they're unhealthy, they're essentially strengths out of balance. And which is what burnout really is led by, is a series of strengths out of balance that you're just trying to do more. We were just talking in the veterinary field, that their strength out of balance is empathy and compassion. They just, in that culture, they just get overwhelmed by that, but there's no mechanism to bring that strength back into balance. And in business, it's a lot of times it's conflict and change, and those are the drivers we see over in our world too. So speaking of businesses and practice owners, specifically, for a practice owner looking to shift toward a more patient-centered fee-for-service model, how can they ensure their team also benefits from improved work-life balance?
I think they need to talk to their team. So basically having these different meetings and seeing what their team feels about it, can be helpful, because there's gonna be an adjustment period between new patients coming in, some patients not being able to exist with their model, some coming back after thinking, oh, they left the office, they're going to who takes their insurance, and recognizing they don't have the same care. So talking to their team and making sure that their team is being taken care of as well. In some offices, team members feel guilty for having to call in sick or having to take that time off, or when they try to take time off, their PTO, it's denied, even though they've given adequate time, sometimes months ahead or half a year, and they told they can't take it off. So you have to support your team and recognize that they need this time for their families. Ideally, they need to be able to go to their kids' events sometimes. That's one of the reasons I mainly work remotely and do all the things I do right now. That allows me to be there for my son, to drop him off, pick him up. And so I do talk to practice owners about having more flexible work hours at times, or allowing team members to have a little bit flexibility at times, because that is what's going to allow them to want to stay at that office forever. If you're stringent and acting like they can't really have a life outside of the office, or let's say they work for your office 4 days a week and you want them to be available on the fifth day at whim, or not go work somewhere else or do something, then that's not going to work. So just recognizing that these are your team members, but you don't own them. So it's important that you help them to take
Mhm.
that time off, or help them in the office not to go overtime, not because of pay so much, but they need that time during lunch to decompress. To decompress, they need to try to have them leave on time is important. So, especially as you guys are going through different transitions and not being so dependent on insurance or dropping insurance, you want to make sure that despite that transition, that the team feels like they're being supported inside and outside the office.
Yeah, thank you, Kari. Yeah, that you led off with the communication piece. I mean, if you took your team right now and asked them all this question, depending if you focus on it from a relational perspective, who they are, why they matter, ask them what they're passionate about, or transactionally what they do and how they do. what is their definition of success?
Mhm.
Do you think you know the answer to those questions with your team? And you might, maybe you do, which would be awesome. And maybe you've asked those questions, which is double awesome. But if you haven't, then what we see is the common denominator is that if we're not communicating, as you led off with, if we're not talking, then we're just assuming that you and I, Kari, have the same definition of success.
Mhm.
We all have the same definition of family. What are the core values of the organization? Do we have there's a parallel, and it's about just because that's where we get that valued and heard. That's where people say, hey, you know what? I'm not just a part of a process. I'm part of a family, a team, an organization. So let's just do a little forecasting, shall we? Let's go wandering out into the wild world here. So looking ahead, and the whole culture of work-life balance. I'm hearing that whether I work in aesthetics fields too on these, and I hear a lot. There's a lot of conversation about wellness lifestyles now. There's now a talk about lifestyle medicine. They're talking specifically about, as opposed to traditional medicine, which is more holistic. There's this move towards recognizing that it's the sum of the parts. It's not one or the other. And this work-life balance is very much a significant connector to that process. So looking at how do you see the culture of work-life balance evolving in dentistry? And kind of just what do you think the steps are that they'll be able to stay ahead of the curve? What are the things to be thinking about doing and staying ahead of the curve and being like I always like to say, my favorite saying is that my whole thing is about helping people lead themselves well, so they can lead others well, so they can go home at night and feel good about how they handle themselves and
Mhm.
others. And that's to me this idea, because that's for me, it would be how I would define my work-life balance, I guess. And but sorry, I had to throw that in just in that thinking of taking steps to stay ahead of the curve. What is the curve, and what can they do to really, I guess the word would be inculcate or really impress a work-life balance culture.
Well, I think right now a lot of communication is needed in the dental scape because we have so many different discussions going on between, let's just put it honestly, so dentists and hygienists are kind of fighting and everything between the
Yeah.
ADA and
Gee,
ADHD.
I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that. No,
Yeah, we're
no,
kind of
that's new
kind of
information.
fighting regarding licensure and autonomy and different things like that. So basically, we shouldn't be fighting in our offices. The more that we can recognize how important every team member is to the office, um, to the organization, to our patients is important. We talked about co-diagnosis already. We talked about communication, but basically just making sure that we are listening to one another and to help with culture. I recently spoke at Dental Culture Con in Miami, which is a great, um, it was the second time they had that dental convention. Learning from people who talk about culture on a daily basis and how we can inculcate different things into our practice. Learning that diversity is important, recognizing how all of our team members may be of different backgrounds or different religions or have different belief systems, but recognizing that just because we're different, we all are needed and respecting that. And recognizing that we need to have differences in the office because our patients are different. So if everything looks the same, that's not really reflective of patient populations. Depending on where you are, it could be reflective of your patient population, depending on where you are in the world or the country or whatever. But most patients are mixed up as well as a big melting pot. And so the more we can have that in our offices is important to recognize the beauty of diversity. I mean, I have a toddler, and so sometimes to get him not to eat peanut butter and jelly is hard. But when I finally can break that, and he's eating different food, and he's like, "Oh, I like that," or "I like this," and so sometimes we have to break out of that mindset of only wanting to be around people who look like us, or act like us, or think like that. So that's not beneficial because then nothing's going to change. We're just on, if you're always thinking about insurance is the answer and you're upset about that not getting the reimbursement, but you won't hire a consultant who can show you a different way, then nothing's going to change. You know, you're just going to be complaining on a Facebook group and everything, just like everybody else, everyone else who thinks the same as you do. So finding ways to incorporate culture in the office on a daily basis is important, and communicating with your team. So just like you said, everyone is different. What I may like for myself may be different. So what does Carrie like? Is it money? Do you need to give me a raise? Do you need to give me more vacation? What do I like? Someone else may be
Mhm.
just like that you put food in the break room so that when they can go get a snack real quick, or that when they ask you to do an exam, you come in a timely fashion. So all these little different things can help with culture. One thing that helped me, because I got bullied a lot throughout my career, I hadn't learned how to stand up for myself and advocate for myself. The last office I worked at full time, that was in their manual. We will not accept any bullying or harassment. So setting a standard. Protocols are important. If there's not proper protocols, then everyone does something differently. I see that a lot in Facebook groups where people are like, the office doesn't sterilize the XCPs properly. Someone's wiping them down. I'm trying to do it correctly. People are fighting over all these different things because a protocol isn't in place. I'm a rule follower, so if you tell me the rule, I'm great. So having proper protocols in place can really stop with a lot of miscommunication and friction at times.
Yeah, I can't imagine you taking any bullying today, that's for sure.
I'm not
Um,
the same person. My husband, when I tell him certain stories sometimes of things that have happened to me, he's like, "What? So you
what?
let someone interview you in the waiting room in the front off?" And I literally, I was telling him when I first graduated from hygiene school over 20 years ago, office manager interviewed me at the front desk with patients behind me, asking me my wage and everything. I was like, I'm not the same person as I am now. There's no way. But you grow into who you are. But yes, would I
Sure
allow
did.
bullying now? No. But years ago,
No.
yes, I unfortunately allow bullying, microaggressions, some harassment from patient. But now, nah,
Wow. No, it's not going to happen now.
no.
We talk a lot about every organization, actually every individual has a conflict management system. Whether you know it or not, if you know it and how much you know, it will tell you just how much healthy or unhealthy conflict exists in yourself or your organization. And unhealthy conflict, we all know it. We've all seen it. We've all watched it escalate. We know what that looks like. And it's about passionately disagreeing with and taking it personally. And it's in your workplaces, it's in your home. We've all seen it. We all have an underlying quote unquote fear of it. It's an uncomfortableness. But healthy conflict is the one that we're looking for, which is what you're talking about, Kari, and the ability to communicate and connect with each other and build wins and understand what people's desires are, their appreciation languages, all those things. Healthy conflict is passionately disagreeing and not taking it personally, and being able to have courageous conversations, to be able to have a clear statement that bullying is not acceptable, to have ideas outside the box that nobody's thought of, and you become the first choice employer in your entire community. That's healthy, but often we can't get past the fear of unhealthy conflict to get to that. What you've been talking about has really been saying, hey, let's be intentional with a process that helps us better communicate with each other, connect with our patients, and ultimately find a better work-life balance in a way that as I said, we get to go home and feel good about ourselves and how we handled others. Beautiful. Well,
Uncomfortable conversations definitely can be hard, but not having them leads to even worse consequences. So it's important for us just to, buck up and have
huge.
those uncomfortable conversations at times.
Yeah, but we have to have created a workplace culture that empowers that type of practice. Because if you're the guy, um, I think of Volkswagen when they decided that it was going to be okay to lie to the customer about their emission standards to protect the return to shareholders. One of their core values is integrity.
Mhm.
So why didn't somebody at the table put their hand up and say, hey, you know what? I get we want to protect our return to shareholders. I understand what we're doing here, but we have this value. How's this line up with it? Well, nobody, I can only guess that there was no place in that culture to ask that question, because you would have lost your job, you would have been belittled or whatever. But when you have a a culture that actually empowers people to be the best version of themselves, you get great stuff. You get crazy stuff sometimes too, but you don't have, you can just validate, you don't have to own it.
Yeah.
So, and we know that with kids, don't we, Kari? That's they have wonderful thoughts and ideas. And you said something like, no one ever told me I should stop eating jelly and peanut butter. So I don't know if I missed that lesson,
Oh
because
no, it's still
I
good.
still love it.
It's still good. You just shouldn't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I don't think, every day.
What's wrong? That seems like a great idea. Anyway, listen, thank you so much, Kari, for joining us today and sharing your invaluable insights on balancing life in dentistry, avoiding burnout while reducing insurance dependence. Your expertise and passion for innovation truly shine, and we're grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from you. To all of our listeners, I hope we've encouraged and inspired you today. As we always say, this podcast is about being intentional with taking action, and I hope all of our listeners are making 2025 the year of action. The best part? There are simple steps you can take right now that won't cost you a thing. Good news. First, set up a marketing strategy session with Equa Marketing, the one I was referring to at the outset. You can go to lessinsuranceDependence.com/marketing-strategy-meeting. As I say, you'll also find that link on where you found our podcast, and you can learn how to replace Delta with organic SEO. It's a game changer for practice growth and something that you don't need to be an expert on, and stay in your own lane and focused on what you're an expert at. Second, if you found value in today's podcast, share this podcast with a colleague or a friend who could benefit from reducing their insurance dependence. The more we spread these insights, the more we can help fellow dentists take control of their practices. Thank you for the privilege of your time today. It's always an honor to be part of your journey. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode of the Less Insurance Dependent podcast. And until then, on behalf of our expert today, Kari, keep moving toward a thriving, independent practice.